Picture this. You're standing on a busy street corner in Mumbai, India, surrounded by the chaos of honking rickshaws, aggressive vendors, and thousands of people rushing past without making eye contact. In your hands are cheap phone accessories spread across a worn blanket, and you're shouting prices that barely cover the cost of your inventory. The midday sun is brutal, you haven't eaten since morning, and after 12 hours you've made maybe $15 in profit. This is your life, and according to every economic indicator, this is probably all it will ever be. Now imagine that 10 years later you're sitting in a sleek office overlooking the same city, but instead of selling phone cases on street corners, you're running an e-commerce platform that processes more daily transactions than Amazon does in several countries. Your company is valued at over $3 billion, employs thousands of people, and has fundamentally changed how hundreds of millions of people shop online. And you did it by understanding something that Jeff Bezos and every other tech billionaire somehow missed. This is the impossible story of Arjun Mehta, a street vendor with an 8th grade education who built an e-commerce empire that didn't just compete with Amazon, it beat Amazon at their own game by serving customers that Silicon Valley had written off as unprofitable. His journey from selling counterfeit chargers on Mumbai streets to running one of Asia's fastest-growing tech companies proves that sometimes the biggest business opportunities are invisible to people who've never been poor. But how does someone with no money, no education, no connections, and no business experience build a technology platform sophisticated enough to rival companies with unlimited resources? How does a street vendor even begin to compete with engineers, venture capitalists, and business strategists who've spent their entire lives preparing for this exact challenge? The answer lies in understanding that sometimes the most valuable business insight isn't knowing how technology works, it's knowing exactly what problems real people need solved. Arjun's story doesn't begin with entrepreneurial ambitions or dreams of building a tech empire. It starts with desperation and the simple mathematics of survival in one of the world's most challenging economic environments. At 16, Arjun dropped out of school to help support his family after his father suffered an injury that prevented him from working as a taxi driver. The family had no savings, 3 younger siblings who needed food and school fees, and rent due on their one-room apartment in a Mumbai slum that housed over 1 million people in impossible density. I didn't have the luxury of thinking about careers or future plans, Arjun recalls. I needed to make money immediately, and the only opportunity I could access was street vending, work that required no education, no capital, and no connections beyond knowing someone who would sell you inventory on credit. Street vending in Mumbai operates in a complex informal economy where thousands of people compete to sell similar products in overlapping territories. Success requires understanding foot traffic patterns, negotiating with suppliers for better prices, avoiding police who periodically crack down on illegal vending, and somehow convincing strangers to buy from you instead of the dozens of other vendors selling identical products. Arjun started by selling phone accessories, chargers, cases, screen protectors, and headphones that he purchased wholesale from a supplier in the electronics district. His initial inventory cost 2,000 rupees, about $25, that he borrowed from a neighborhood money lender at interest rates that would have been illegal in regulated financial markets. His first week was brutal. Arjun would arrive at his corner at 6 a.m., stand for 12 to 14 hours shouting at passers-by, and return home having sold maybe 30% of his inventory for barely enough profit to cover his daily meal and a small payment toward his loan interest. I thought I would fail, Arjun remembers. Hundreds of people were doing the same thing I was doing, and I had no advantage over any of them. I was just another desperate kid trying to make a few rupees. But Arjun's survival instincts led him to develop approaches that other vendors hadn't considered. While most vendors simply displayed their products and shouted prices, Arjun started studying his customers, watching what products they looked at, listening to what questions they asked, and noticing what convinced them to buy or walk away. What he discovered was that price wasn't actually the primary factor in most purchasing decisions. Customers were worried about quality, concerned about compatibility with their specific phone models, and anxious about whether products would actually work or be worthless counterfeits. Arjun started offering something unusual for Mumbai street vendors: guarantees. If a charger didn't work, customers could return it for replacement. If a screen protector didn't fit their phone model, they could exchange it. If they weren't satisfied with any purchase, Arjun would refund their money. This approach was considered crazy by other vendors who operated on the assumption that street sales were final, and customer complaints were simply part of doing business. But Arjun understood something crucial: trust was more valuable than immediate profit, and customers who trusted you would return and bring others. His guarantee policy slowly built a customer base that specifically sought him out. Regular customers would walk past other vendors to buy from Arjun because they knew he would stand behind his products. Word spread through social networks and workplace conversations, and Arjun's sales volume began growing faster than his competitors. Within 6 months, Arjun had repaid his initial loan, expanded his inventory, and was making enough profit to meaningfully contribute to his family's survival. More importantly, he had learned something that would later prove crucial to his business success. In markets where trust is scarce, the person who figures out how to provide it reliably has an enormous competitive advantage. But Arjun's street vending career also revealed a fundamental problem that would eventually lead to his e-commerce breakthrough. The informal economy he operated in was massively inefficient in ways that hurt both vendors and customers. Vendors had to physically carry inventory, stand for hours in all weather conditions, compete for limited high-traffic locations, and deal with police harassment and territorial disputes. Customers had to physically visit markets, negotiate with vendors they didn't trust, carry purchases home, and had no recourse if products were defective. The whole system was stupid, Arjun explains. Vendors and customers both hated it, but everyone accepted it as the only way things could work. I started thinking there had to be a better approach. Arjun's exposure to smartphones, the products he was selling but couldn't afford to own, gave him glimpses of how technology might solve some of these problems. He would watch customers using their phones and wonder why people who could access the internet still came to street markets to buy physical products. The answer, he realized, was that existing e-commerce platforms weren't designed for people like his customers. Amazon and Flipkart served urban middle-class Indians with credit cards, reliable addresses, and trust in online payments. Arjun's customers had none of those things. They worked in informal jobs that paid daily cash wages. They lived in slums with addresses that couldn't be found on any map. They had no credit cards and didn't trust systems that asked them to pay before seeing products. Existing e-commerce platforms had essentially written off this market as too difficult and unprofitable to serve. But Arjun knew something that Silicon Valley executives didn't. These supposedly unprofitable customers represented the majority of India's population, and their collective purchasing power was enormous if someone could figure out how to serve them efficiently. Arjun's path from street vendor to technology entrepreneur was neither quick nor obvious. It required solving problems in sequence, learning skills he had never been taught, and building credibility despite having no formal qualifications for anything he was attempting. His first technology experiment came when he borrowed a smartphone from a cousin and started posting photos of his products on WhatsApp groups. The response revealed something important. Many potential customers wanted to buy from him, but couldn't physically visit his street corner during their working hours. Arjun started taking orders through WhatsApp and delivering products to customers' workplaces or homes during early morning or evening hours when he wasn't vending. The delivery service added hours to his already exhausting schedule, but it also doubled his sales volume and provided insights into customer needs that weren't visible on street corners. He discovered that people wanted much wider product variety than he could carry in street inventory. They wanted information about product features and compatibility that couldn't be communicated through shouted sales pitches. Most importantly, they wanted the convenience of shopping from their phones but with the trust and accountability of dealing with someone they could find if something went wrong. These insights led Arjun to a crucial realization. Technology could solve these problems if it was designed around the actual needs of informal economy customers, rather than adapting Silicon Valley models to Indian conditions. At 18, Arjun made a decision that seemed completely insane to everyone who knew him. He was going to build a smartphone app that would allow street vendors to reach customers throughout the city while providing the trust mechanisms that made informal commerce work. The decision was absurd for obvious reasons. Arjun had no programming knowledge, no business training, no capital, and no connections to the technology or investment communities that might help him build such a platform. He was a street vendor with an 8th-grade education trying to compete with billionaire-backed companies that employed thousands of engineers. What Arjun did have was an intimate understanding of exactly what his customers needed and why existing solutions failed them. While Amazon's product managers made decisions based on data analytics and market research, Arjun made decisions based on 12-hour days watching real customers struggle with real problems. His approach to building technology without technical skills was characteristically practical. He taught himself, using free online resources, library computers, and help from anyone willing to explain basic concepts. Arjun spent 6 months learning enough about app development to build a basic prototype. The app he created was crude by Silicon Valley standards. It had no sophisticated algorithms, no machine learning, no elegant user interface design. What it had was functionality that addressed the specific problems that prevented informal economy customers from shopping online. Instead of requiring payment before delivery, Arjun's app allowed cash payment on delivery, removing the trust barrier that prevented most of his customers from using conventional e-commerce. Instead of requiring formal addresses, his app used landmark-based descriptions and phone contact to enable delivery to slums and informal settlements. Instead of sophisticated product catalogs, his app featured simple photos and descriptions that clearly explained what customers would actually receive. Most importantly, Arjun's app connected customers directly with vetted local vendors, who would be held accountable through community reputation systems if they didn't deliver on promises. This recreated the trust mechanisms of informal street commerce within a digital platform. The prototype was launched with 25 street vendors in Arjun's neighborhood, who agreed to participate in his experiment. The initial response was mixed. Many potential users were skeptical that an app built by a street vendor could actually work, and many vendors were suspicious that Arjun was trying to exploit them somehow. But slow word-of-mouth growth demonstrated that Arjun had identified real demand for services that existing platforms didn't provide. Within 3 months, his app had facilitated over 1,000 transactions, and both vendors and customers were requesting expanded features and wider coverage. Arjun's business model was unlike anything conventional e-commerce companies used. Instead of holding inventory or employing delivery staff, his platform simply connected customers with local vendors and took a small commission on successful transactions. This asset-light approach required minimal capital while allowing rapid scaling. More importantly, Arjun's commission structure was designed to be sustainable for vendors rather than maximizing platform profits. While Amazon charged vendors 15 to 30% commissions, Arjun charged 7 to 10%, enough to support his platform operations but low enough that vendors could earn meaningful income while offering competitive prices. "I didn't want to build a platform that extracted wealth from poor people," Arjun explains. "I wanted to build a platform that helped street vendors earn better livings while giving customers better shopping experiences. If I did that successfully, the business would naturally become profitable." This philosophy attracted vendors who saw Arjun's platform as an opportunity rather than a threat. While Amazon's entry into Indian markets had been viewed with hostility by small retailers who feared being driven out of business, Arjun's platform was seen as a tool that enhanced vendors' capabilities rather than replaced them. By age 20, Arjun's platform had expanded beyond phone accessories to include clothing, household goods, groceries, and virtually any product category that informal economy customers needed. His vendor network had grown to over 5,000 participants across Mumbai, and his daily transaction volume had reached levels that impressed even skeptical observers. But Arjun's most significant innovation wasn't technology or business model. It was demonstrating that informal economy customers represented an enormous market opportunity if platforms were designed around their actual needs, rather than forcing them to adapt to systems built for middle-class consumers. His success attracted attention from venture capitalists, who had previously dismissed the informal economy as too difficult to serve profitably. Arjun received investment offers from multiple firms eager to fund his platform's expansion across India. The investment negotiations tested Arjun's commitment to his original mission. Several investors wanted him to abandon low-margin informal economy customers and focus on middle-class markets where Amazon was already operating. They argued that serving poor customers would never generate the profit margins that venture capital required. Arjun refused those offers. He took investment only from firms that understood and supported his mission of serving underserved markets through vendor-empowering business models. The deal he eventually accepted provided capital for expansion while preserving his control over platform policies and vendor relationships. The investment enabled rapid scaling that transformed Arjun's startup into a significant force in Indian e-commerce. Within 2 years, his platform had expanded to 15 cities, enrolled over 100,000 vendors, and was processing more than 1 million transactions monthly. More importantly, Arjun's platform was achieving something that Amazon had struggled to accomplish in India: profitable operations serving mass-market customers. While Amazon was losing billions trying to compete on price and convenience in middle-class markets, Arjun's platform was profitable because it had built business models and technology specifically designed for informal economy dynamics. His approach attracted attention from international business media, technology analysts, and academics studying innovation in emerging markets. Arjun became a case study in how local entrepreneurs with deep market understanding could outcompete global technology giants through context-appropriate innovation. But Arjun's most significant impact was demonstrating that informal economy customers weren't unprofitable. They had simply been underserved by platforms designed for different markets. His success proved that serving poor customers well could generate both social impact and commercial success when business models aligned with customer needs. By age 23, Arjun's platform had grown into a major e-commerce player valued at over $3 billion by investors who recognized its potential to dominate markets that conventional platforms had written off as unreachable. But valuation and growth metrics didn't fully capture Arjun's achievement. He had created a platform that was meaningfully improving lives for both vendors and customers in ways that conventional e-commerce platforms hadn't accomplished. Vendors who joined Arjun's platform reported income increases of 30 to 50% compared to pure street vending because they could reach more customers with less physical effort. They worked fewer hours in better conditions while earning more money, and they developed business skills through platform training programs that Arjun had implemented. Customers gained access to wider product variety, better prices, convenient delivery, and quality guarantees that made shopping less stressful and more reliable. They saved time and money while getting better products and services than street markets had provided. We didn't just build a successful business, Arjun reflects. We built a platform that proved poor people deserve better services than they were getting, and that companies can be profitable while treating vendors and customers fairly rather than exploiting them. Today, at 28 years old, Arjun Mehta leads one of Asia's fastest-growing e-commerce platforms, employs thousands of people, and has been recognized with awards for social entrepreneurship and innovative business models. His company processes more daily transactions in India than Amazon does, and has expanded into other Asian countries with similar informal economy dynamics. But perhaps Arjun's greatest achievement is demonstrating that business success and social impact aren't contradictory goals. They can be complementary when business models are designed around genuine customer and vendor needs rather than simply maximizing shareholder returns. His story has inspired a generation of entrepreneurs from non-traditional backgrounds who recognize that deep understanding of underserved markets can be more valuable than technical skills or business credentials. Major business schools now teach Arjun's approach as an example of context-appropriate innovation that succeeds by serving markets that conventional wisdom had dismissed. Arjun's influence extends beyond e-commerce to broader conversations about economic development, technology design, and the role of business in addressing poverty and inequality. His demonstration that informal economy customers represent enormous market opportunities has shifted how investors and entrepreneurs think about emerging market opportunities. People used to think that serving poor customers meant accepting low profits or relying on charitable models, explains Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, who studies social entrepreneurship at Stanford Business School. Arjun proved that serving underserved markets well can generate both social impact and commercial success when business models match market realities rather than imposing Silicon Valley assumptions. The street vendor who started by selling phone chargers on Mumbai corners became a business leader whose innovations changed how hundreds of millions of people shop while providing livelihood opportunities for hundreds of thousands of vendors who had been excluded from formal economy prosperity. Arjun's journey from informal economy survival to technology innovation demonstrates that breakthrough business opportunities often exist in markets that conventional wisdom has dismissed, and that sometimes the most valuable expertise isn't formal education or technical skills, it's lived experience understanding exactly what problems real people need solved. His story reminds us that entrepreneurial success can emerge from unexpected sources when people combine deep market understanding with determination to build solutions that serve genuine needs. The biggest business opportunities aren't always in serving wealthy customers with sophisticated products. Sometimes they're in serving underserved customers with appropriate solutions that major companies have overlooked. The boy who sold counterfeit chargers on street corners became a man who built an empire by understanding what Silicon Valley missed, that the majority of humanity doesn't need incremental improvements to services designed for wealthy markets. They need fundamentally different solutions designed specifically for their actual circumstances and needs. Arjun Mehta's legacy extends far beyond his personal success, to include proof that inclusive business models can generate commercial success while creating genuine social value, that technology can empower rather than displace informal economy workers, and that sometimes the most important business insight is simply taking seriously the needs of customers that everyone else has written off as unprofitable. His story continues to inspire entrepreneurs worldwide, who recognize that the next generation of successful businesses might not come from disrupting existing markets. They might come from finally serving markets that have been ignored, because conventional business wisdom didn't understand how to profitably address their needs.